On today's show, I take a look at the Ottawa Senators lines heading into another preseason game in Quebec City up against the Montreal Canadiens. And we have a special guest, friend of the show from The Athletic, Julian McKenzie, to catch you up on all things Ottawa Senators in the preseason so far.
This is Yakemchuk, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
Your Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators.
Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to today's episode of the Locked On Senators podcast. Today is Tuesday, September 30th. I'm your host, Brandon Pillar from up in the Blue Mountains. If you're watching, you're probably wondering, where is Ross Levitan? If you're listening, you're probably wondering, why is Pilsy doing the intro? Well, Ross couldn't be with us today, so I'm taking control. I'm driving the bus here, and we're driving in Quebec City, and we're talking Ottawa Senators preseason hockey. I'm fired up that finally they're in Quebec. They're up against the Montreal Canadiens tonight, and we've got lines for today's game, and we've got a special guest coming on the show. I chat with Julian McKenzie from The Athletic, friend of the show. Always great catching up with Julian. He's going to tell us about the hockey vibe in Quebec City. We're going to talk Carter Yakemchuk, who's going to play with Tim Stützle, Brady Tkachuk, who's got the edge on the fourth line heading out of camp, and who is Julian's X-Factor player. But like we mentioned, it's a game day for the Ottawa Senators up against the Montreal Canadiens in Quebec City at the Videotron Center. The vibes in Quebec City have been good as far as Ottawa Senators are concerned. Thomas Chabot gets to do a bit of a homecoming, going to his old elementary school, talking to the kids there. The Ottawa Senators get the 2-0 win. Linus Ullmark with the 14 save shutout. So vibes are good. Let's go ahead and take a look at the lines for today. And without Ross being here, I had to take control of the graphics department for the Locked On Senators podcast. So here we go. Let's take a look at how the Ottawa Senators line up tonight up against the Montreal Canadiens. All right, and since Ross isn't here, we're going to read the lines correctly from left wing center to right, left to right, the way a normal human being reads anything. So to start with the forwards, we got Brady Tkachuk, Tim Stützle, Claude Giroux, Travis Green sticking to that tried and true top line. Then we've got Ridley Gregg with Shane Pinto, Michael Amadio. The third line, checking line stays intact. And then as we go on, we're going to see the battle for fourth line spots happening in the bottom six here. Ole Lycksell, Stephen Halliday, Arthur Kaliyev. And just as we predicted, once the Ottawa Senators play up against the Montreal Canadiens, Travis Green was going to get some physicality, a little oomph to his bottom six. And Hayden Hodgson is going to be there. He knows his job. Jan Yannick, and of course, Zach McEwen as well. On defense, the classic top pair, Sanderson with Artem Zub, and you've got Sebrango and Jordan Spence, and then Matim Palo and Yakemchuk. We're going to get to see Yakemchuk in another game here. Can he continue to impress and make his case to make the NHL team out of camp? And we know that Levi Merilainen is going to start. I'm not sure who's going to back up, so I just put Sogard here. It's going to be a good game tonight, and we'll see what kind of roster the Montreal Canadiens decide to go with. And like I always say, preseason, let's just make sure nobody gets hurt. There's obviously going to be some physicality, some animosity anytime these two teams play, especially in a, I guess, neutral site in Quebec City. The Ottawa Senators are trying to stake their claim and convert some Quebec City fans. Hopefully the hatred towards the Montreal Canadiens stand strong, although I'm sure lots of Habs fans will be making that easy trip from Montreal to Quebec City. And it's going to be nice to see Levi Merilainen hopefully play a full game. I don't want to see any of this split squad stuff for where the goalie starts and then another goalie comes in cold. We don't need any of that. Give Matt Sogard the full start up against the St. Louis Blues, in my opinion, but let Levi Merilainen have this full start, just like they let Linus Ullmark have that full start. So 7 o'clock tonight, the Ottawa Senators, Montreal Canadiens. Hopefully there's no funny business as far as the stream goes. Last time it was a bit chaotic trying to figure out how do I watch it. Then you finally found out where to watch it and there's no audio. So I'm sure since the Habs are there, things are going to be figured out and it's going to be just fine. So we're looking forward to that. But we're also looking forward to my chat with Julian McKenzie. He was nice enough to join me for 25 minutes today before practice. We get into a lot of things. So let's get to that now. You're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. Guys, the NFL season is here, and FanDuel is making sure you're ready for kickoff with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel, and you should too. It's the best sports book as far as I'm concerned because they fit however you like to bet. Player props, same game parlays, or even jumping in live as the action unfolds. It makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your favorite team, although as a Bengals fan, that hasn't been that exciting for me, or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Thursdays, Sundays, and Mondays. So, are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Today's episode is also brought to you by our friends over at the GLEBE Central Pub. You guys know the GCP is our favorite pub in Ottawa whenever we come to the nation's capital. And if you're looking for a place that lives and breathes hockey, GLEBE Central Pub is the spot, right in the heart of the Glebe, 779 Bank Street, just steps from Lansdowne. It's the perfect place to catch every game, every night. And they got great food, great drinks, and even better company. We love all the staff over at the GCP, but it's more than just catching the big game. There's something happening almost every day of the week so that you can know you're going to have a good time at the GCP. Start your week with Wing Day every Monday, all day, all night. Trivia goes Tuesday, so bring your crew and put your knowledge to the test. And Wednesday, it's open mic night, so whether you play, sing, or just want to kick back, listen, and enjoy, it's a great way to celebrate Hump Day. Thursdays are all about cheap tacos, Taco Thursdays, and of course, Saturday night features live music with no cover ever. Whether it's hockey, live music, or just a night out with friends, make the Glebe Central Pub your home base because, as you know, the vibes are free at the GCP. Now let's get to our interview with Julian McKenzie. All right, we now welcome onto the show, friend of the show from The Athletic. You already know him, reading his articles on the Ottawa Senators. It's Julian McKenzie from Quebec City. Julian, how you doing, man?
I'm doing very well, man. Good to catch up with you. Sorry that Ross couldn't be here, but we'll find a way to make this work.
Yeah,
hopefully things are good with you.
Everything's good. Yeah, we're excited for Sens hockey. I've done a few solo interviews, so everyone, if you're watching on YouTube, Julian has made it very clear by his display name he is not Ross. So if you're confused about who the other voice is here, not Ross, Julian McKenzie. But we're stoked to have you on, Julian. And you're in Quebec City, and as someone that I know you were in Montreal for quite a while. How long were you in Montreal? So you have good familiarity with Quebec.
Yeah, like born and raised in Montreal,
Okay.
Quebec City would be like for kids in high school, Quebec City's the trip you do in like grade 7 or something of high school. Like first year of high school, that's what you're doing. So like I've been to Quebec City a few times. This is my first time in like 3 years. Like before I moved out west, I went to go visit a friend of mine who had just moved for a job. And me and a couple buddies, we did a road trip. We hung out around Old Quebec. We hung out around Plaine d'Abraham. Like we did a lot of the touristy stuff. I had another friend who came from the States too. I got to show them around Quebec City as well, show them around a vineyard. They got some really nice waterfalls up in a part of the city. But to be here to watch hockey in the Videotron Center, this is I've never had that experience before. So that's been really fun to take it.
Yeah, so let's get into that. So it's not the Quebec Nordiques in Quebec City, unfortunately for Quebec City fans, but the Ottawa Senators and Michael Andlauer has really made a point to be like, look, I think something that maybe the Sens overlooked in the past was the Quebec market. Now you hear any sort of branding or any talks about Ottawa, Michael Andlauer is very clear to emphasize Ottawa Gatineau. Ottawa Gatineau, always mentioning that part of it. And obviously the split Quebec Nordiques jersey and Sens jersey on Spartacat didn't go over so well, but they learned their lesson there. But I think there's still an aim to try to lure or convert Quebec City fans to be like, hey, you don't like the Habs, Ottawa Senators fans don't like the Habs. We can have a mutual agreement here. How realistic is it, Julian? Do you think that the Ottawa Senators can convert Quebec City fans to not just hang on to the past and be Nordique fans, but adopt a new team in the Senators?
I actually give the Sens points for trying something and trying to appeal to a market that does not have an NHL team. There are fans, whether they are older fans who are still holding on to the Nordiques or younger fans who have no attachment to the team at all. There's clearly hockey fans. There's clearly passion in the market. And it seems to me like the Sens are trying to appeal to a lot of the younger folk who, you know, maybe rooting for the Canadiens is not the thing they want to do. Maybe it's cool to root for the Ottawa Senators. The thing is that the Montreal Canadiens, like, they're a worldwide brand, we know. And like they dominate a lot of the brand in Quebec City. Like I remember the other night I was walking around and I passed a sports store and there's like a big chunk of a wall that has all of these different Montreal Canadiens jerseys. Opposite of it, there's like a smaller corner of Nordiques jerseys, and then like one Senators jersey in the front of the store, but still just like one Sens jersey. Like in the lead in my story for The Athletic on Quebec City, like we were in a whole gymnasium of these kids, and Thomas Chabot is visiting them. There's like one kid wearing a Brady Tkachuk jersey. Like I think it's something that will take some time, especially when you're going up against a brand like the Montreal Canadiens, which again is not just solely part of Quebec. It's the world over. I think what will help the Ottawa Senators is, you know, obviously putting together a winning club, having really good players. That I think is a really good calling card for them. The fact that like Brady Tkachuk is a star, Tim Stützle is a star, people know who Claude Giroux and David Perron are, and the fact that the Sens have them and they show them prominently. Like, yes, I get that Giroux technically is Franco-Ontarian, but like still that's important for the branding in terms of appealing yourself to French and English. I still think there's some inroads that maybe the Sens need to continue to do, whether it's in their game presentation, how they show themselves, and being a little bit more bilingual. But I can't fault them for trying to tap into a market that has not had an NHL team. And there are still some fans who are maybe still agnostic to cheering on a team since Quebec has left. And also some fans who, again, just maybe they don't know if they want to root for the Canadiens. It happens to all of us where you're young and yeah, fine, there's a local team you root for, but hey, the Vegas Golden Knights all of a sudden are really good. Maybe I'll be a fan of them. Maybe I'll be a fan of Colorado. They're winning. Especially with the younger kids, now's the time for the Senators to tap into that market and convert some of those kids into fans and slightly older people too.
Yeah, and I think Senators fans, I think, see the vision there. I think the split jersey rubbed everyone the wrong way. And
it was a wrong move.
Yeah, and Michael Andlauer has realized that, and he's talked about that, which obviously Sens fans appreciate. And I think it's not going to be easy to convert fans. You're going to have to continue to do this. And I think Sens fans are okay with, hey, in the preseason, if you want to do this to promote it and spread the brand and spread awareness, try to get fans, that's fine. But I think when there was talks of regular season games being used as Ottawa Senators home games technically to play in Quebec City, that's when it was like, okay, this is our team. We don't want another city encroaching on our home games and things like that. So it's going to be fascinating to see how they continue on with this relationship.
Yeah, and to your point, like if you're going to tap into that Francophone market, Gatineau is right there. And I still think there is more work that needs to be done there. And you tell me, like, if the Sens came out and said, hey, we're going to find a way to play a regular season game or two in Gatineau, I don't think people would be nearly as upset considering the proximity of that market compared to Quebec City, which is like 5 hours away by comparison, right? Like, and remember, Michael Andlauer, as much as he is passionate about the Ottawa Senators, as much as he wants to see this market succeed and tap into Gatineau, he also likes the idea of NHL hockey being played in Quebec City. He said on record that market deserves an NHL franchise. I think there are people around the league who think, even if it's just purely for sentimental reasons and they can't speak for financial viability, they would love to see hockey return to Quebec City. It just, the numbers and the economics of it just maybe doesn't reflect right on them. But I don't know. I think ultimately, like, wanting to have games of any kind in Quebec City inadvertently, even if Andlauer is not going out of his way to like help the cause, it's still kind of, if you're Quebec City, whatever case you have to try to show that you can be an NHL market, it still sort of helps in that way.
Absolutely, yeah. And if you guys want to learn more about this, go check out Julian's article at The Athletic. He wrote all about kind of the Quebec City hockey angle. Now, let's get to the Ottawa Senators. They are playing games there, not against Montreal, but New Jersey, the first game. The next game is up against Montreal tonight. So I want to get into Linus Ullmark because, my God, when you have your number one goalie who's making $8 million a year starting this year and on his extension, and he comes out of training camp being like, yeah, didn't have a good training camp. That's not a great thing to hear for Sens fans. And then to play one period and allow 3 goals on 8 shots against a weak Leafs roster also isn't great. So, Julian, how important do you think this shutout win was for Ullmark? I know it was a weak New Jersey squad. I know they only had 14 shots, but I feel like Ullmark is a guy where the mentality that he has will reflect in his performance big time.
Yeah, I think you're onto something with that explanation. And I think with the shutout performance, even if the Sens, I think, did a great job of limiting chances against, for a guy like Linus Ullmark, who, again, started training camp by saying he had a terrible showing, I think getting an opportunity like that to show that he has progressed to this point, that's a big thing for him, I think. I think for this Ottawa Senators team, in order for them to truly take that next step, it's going to call on so many different pieces to be good. And it's not so much that you want Linus Ullmark to take this step. It's not like he's this young goaltender and you're hoping like, hey, we hope you can go from pretty good to all-star. You're hoping that the investment you made into Ullmark is worthwhile. You're hoping that all of your younger pieces take that step to go from stars to superstars or what have you, and that the goaltender you have at the back is able to hold down the fort. I when I heard the initial comments about him saying he had a terrible showing out the gate, at first I thought, that's not what you want a goalie of his price tag to say. Yep. But would you rather him say that at the first week of preseason, or would you rather him say that game 41, which I've heard other goalies say that before, and that's not good to hear. But would you rather hear Linus Ullmark say that game 41? I think that ultimately for him, he knows he has to play at a high level. And if this is how he gets there, if he feels he's getting there, just purely from a mindset point, hey, that works for him. That's good for him. And at the end of the day, like, preseason, you'd much rather he say that then, and then he works his way out of that compared to a regular season game.
Yeah, and he kind of said that himself. He was like, well, you'd rather get those out of the way now and move forward. So exactly. I can appreciate that. So Linus Ullmark obviously is going to be a big reason why the Senators could or could not have success based on his play. But you still got to score goals. And the Ottawa Senators struggled to score goals, especially 5-on-5 last season. Now, a lot of Ottawa Senators fans are asking, how are they going to score goals on even strength? And you're going to need your top guys to be able to produce. So the big question a lot of people have is, are they going to change up that top line of Brady, Timmy, Claude Giroux? Because Claude Giroux still put up 50 points last year, still showed that he can produce offensively. But I think in that top line, maybe some Sens fans are at least saying, let's try something different. Let's see if we can get a little bit more out of these guys. In your opinion, Julian, do you think that Travis Green is probably just going to run it back with that top line? Or do you think there's an opportunity for someone else to get at least a chance to play with Timmy and Brady?
I would be surprised at this point if he were to flip lines from almost the beginning of training camp. Maybe not exactly at the beginning point, but we've seen like Tkachuk and Giroux together. There was a brief point where it was like Tkachuk, Pinto, and Giroux on a top line, and Tim Stützle maybe had a couple moments with Fabian Zetterlund. But then once we've gotten into game action, it's been Tkachuk, Stützle, Giroux. I'd be surprised if all three of those guys were going to play against the Montreal Canadiens. I mean, I know they had an earlier practice, but like they weren't in the main group with everybody. Like, I would be surprised if we saw all three of those guys against the Canadiens. They totally could happen. But just all that to say, even if they do play, I would sooner expect them to see them together, and I would sooner expect to see Perron, Cousins, and Zetterlund together. And that line particularly, I think Perron and Zetterlund particularly, I should say Cousins and Zetterlund particularly, they've shown there's some chemistry there.
Yeah.
Cousins is showing that he's got that quickness and he's able to make plays, and Fabian Zetterlund likes to hang out in front of the net. There's an opportunity for those two to connect on some plays. I would be surprised at this point, just with training camp as the opportunity for guys to come together and you form your lines and then you play a couple games together. It's not impossible. It's just at this juncture now where you have the St. Louis game later on this week, you have a Montreal game later on this week, and then next week we're talking about regular season hockey. Like it's right there. Like if you are going to make that change and you're going to put Fabian Zetterlund up on a top line, like now would probably be the time to do it. Hey, if after this podcast, if Travis Green says, screw it, we're just going to make that the case tonight, you can go back on this podcast and laugh for yourself. But I just think with the fact that Tkachuk, Stützle, and Giroux, the chemistry they have together, the familiarity they have with one another, it seems like Travis Green has been leaning on that to start. He's telling us not to read too much into the lines, but you've used that line for a good chunk of camp so far, and with days running out until the end of preseason and training camp, wouldn't it be a little late in the game right now to say, hey, you know what, we're putting Fabian Zetterlund up on that top line? I would think so.
Yeah, I agree. I thought he would tinker with the lines a little more in training camp and then
Me too.
Resort back to the same combos once regular season comes if he wasn't wowed by it. But it certainly seems like he's just sticking with the status quo. Now, preseason is a time for guys to shine and make their case to make the team, the NHL team. And last preseason, Carter Yakemchuk sure made his case to make the NHL team, but the Ottawa Senators did the patient thing and the responsible thing, in my opinion, sent it back to junior to work on his game. This time around, we know Carter Yakemchuk's not going back to junior. He is going to Belleville or he's staying in the NHL. In your opinion, I think the important part is how I'm wording this question. Do you think he will start in the NHL? Because I do believe he's going to play some NHL games this season, but does he start there, especially with the opportunity? Unfortunately, Nick Jensen likely won't be ready to go at the start of the season. So there's an opportunity there on the right side.
Yeah, there's health is the biggest thing for me with that question, because if Nick Jensen, for whatever reason, is just like, hey, I'm not 100% ready to start the regular season, and already, we're still waiting on Tyler Kleven to get back to. I know he plays a different side, but there's a world where the Ottawa Senators defense core is missing a guy or two. Mm-hmm. That is the best path forward for Carter Yakemchuk to make a case to start the season. I think he looked good with Jake Sanderson playing on his right side. I thought he looked really good playing alongside Thomas Chabot over the weekend against the New Jersey Devils. And yes, last year everyone was wowed by the offensive capability, the goal he scored against Toronto. I think for Carter Yakemchuk, what's made him good is that he's just looked solid. He's made smart decisions in the offensive zone, whether it's, finding his lane to get a shot, or if he's able to make that extra pass to keep the puck moving in the offensive zone, he's been able to do that, or zone exits out of the defensive end and not making too many mistakes there. He's making his case. Carter Yakemchuk, I think, regardless of how this ends up for him, he's going to put himself in a position, I think, where he'll find some NHL time and he'll get that experience, or he starts the season off in Belleville and he's top pairing. He's the best defenseman on that team.
Playing top power play.
Basically, you want to put him in every situation possible, but this is essentially what my expectations for Carter Yakemchuk entering training camp were, for him to play well enough that the Ottawa Senators would look at the roster and say, okay, is there a world where Carter Yakemchuk makes this team? and Steve Stais is looking at his roster, maybe not staying all night, but he's thinking about it.
Yeah.
I have to think that he's thinking like, man, like Carter Yakemchuk's been good. Like he's giving himself a chance. And I think to hear Travis Green say Sunday was his best day at camp, like that bodes really well for him. That goes a long way for his chances of starting. We'll see how it looks in terms of the health of everybody. Things could change between now and next week when they travel. But I think for Carter Yakemchuk, I come away from this camp at least impressed at how he's been able to handle himself. And I think he's done well in terms of giving himself a chance at playing NHL minutes.
Yeah, with the injuries on the D-core, there's an opportunity there. Pretty much the only other opportunity I would say is on the fourth line. Like the rest of the lineup is kind of set with guys. Where are they going to play? That remains to be seen. But the guys we kind of know. So in your opinion, Julian, who do you think has the edge on being the fourth? Well, there could be two spots depending on Lars Eller's health as well, speaking of health. But between, let's say, Kaliyev, Lycksell, and Halliday. Let's do those three guys. How would you power rank their opportunity to make the team out of camp?
I would say third place goes to Halliday. I like the goal he scored on Sunday. I thought it was a really wicked shot. I think for him, just getting whatever experience, a bit similar to Yakemchuk, where I don't want him in a situation, if I'm a Sens fan, if I'm Sens management, I do not want Halliday. I don't want Yakemchuk in this like 13th role, 7th defenseman spot. I want them playing every day, every possible moment you can get them to play, to get them experience, you put them in that spot. Lars Eller in this situation, it remains to be, we'll see with how it goes with his health. The fact that he says he feels like he's not playing with pain anymore and he's progressing, like that bodes really well for him. And for whatever reason, if he can't make that trip to Florida and you have to start the season with Stephen Halliday, that's not the end of the world. But I think if Eller shows that he's ready, Stephen Halliday is probably that among the last cuts, and he starts the year in Belleville. Second place, I would say Kaliyev. I thought he started preseason well. I think he was maybe like a little quiet, but I think it's been really interesting to see the Sens not just have him in these opportunities up and down the lineup, but he's getting power play time too. The fact that he's been able to show that he can convert from that spot. I know the one goal that was almost a power play goal against Toronto was just as the power play expired, but it's still in that power play formation. They still beat the PK formation that Toronto set up. I like that for him. Big bodied guy is just a play. I'm curious if a 13th role for him is the right fit for him, or if just putting him on that fourth line is right for him. But this is a player this organization is obviously very familiar with. So I'm not surprised they took that flyer on him. And I really think Ole Lycksell, you could make an argument that there's a world he should start on the fourth line on the left wing.
Yeah,
and
he's looked good.
I think there's been a genuine battle between him and Nick Cousins. I think Nick Cousins, obviously, with the rapport that he has with the team and the familiarity and the veteran experience, like that's a guy that, it wouldn't surprise me, obviously, if he started the season as the fourth line left winger. But even hearing Cousins himself say that he knows his spot is not guaranteed, he doesn't know where he might fit. I think all of that has to do with Ole Lycksell and the way that he's played. I've really liked his effort on plays, making second chance plays work, fighting for rebounds. Even the empty net goal he scored on Sunday, he creates a turnover at the blue line and then buries it into the empty net. Efforts and moments like that endears you to a team, that endears you to a coaching staff, and it gives you a chance at making a roster. If Ole Lycksell is this team's 13th forward, that's still a win considering what he's shown for preseason with this team. But if he gets himself to a point for whatever reason where the team is like, hey man, you know what? Like fourth line left winger Ole Lycksell, I think that'd be a really cool story for him, considering he was kind of used sparingly in Philadelphia. And if he turns himself into a usable player on this roster, considering his effort, I think that'd be a really cool story.
Yeah, Lycksell is really impressed for sure. Now, final question for me, Julian, and thanks for joining. This has been awesome. We always love having you on the show. Go check out his stuff at The Athletic. Certainly worth it as he covers the Ottawa Senators.
Thank you.
So we've been asking everyone we can before the season starts, and we did this last year, so it's interesting to get a tally of the different names and the different opinions. Who is your X factor player for the Ottawa Senators? So what I mean by that is, if they exceed expectations, that's going to really put the Sens in a great spot. But if they are below their expectations, that's really going to make things difficult for the Sens.
There's a few players who could totally fit this description.
Yep.
Like, you could start in the main group with the main players who you expect to play at a high level. Like Brady Tkachuk, what more can you say about that player in terms of dragging his team into the fight and the style of play that he has? He's the straw that stirs the drink in Ottawa, as far as I'm concerned. If he's playing well, the whole team plays well. And he's already shown he could be an X factor. It's just if he's healthy this year, excuse me, he shows. I mean, I know he only missed 10 games last year, but if he just maintains that health, that goes a long way.
Yep.
Tim Stützle, he's hit 90 points in this league before, but like people are wondering, like, is this the year he's really a superstar around the league? His teammates obviously think that, but like, I think if you canvass opinions around the rest of the league, maybe it's a little bit more split. But like, if he leaves, no doubt this year, that goes a long way for this team. Just kind of, obviously being where they want to be. And we look at Tim Stützle very differently, obviously. I don't know if he's the best answer for this question, but like, I still think
no wrong answer.
I still think Dylan Cousins deserves consideration for this. I still think, and I've been saying this everywhere, and I think I've written about this too. I think you could make the argument of every player on the Ottawa Senators who has pressure to take that next step. There's no player on this team who has more pressure to take a step forward than Dylan Cousins. Even Fabian Zetterlund, who only scored twice last year and got paid. Dylan Cousins, much more expensive contract, has the track record in Buffalo, was a top 10 pick in his draft year. All this promise surrounding him. And all because in the playoffs, the faceoffs weren't where they needed to be. He only scores one goal, gets another assist. That's why in the offseason, you're seeing fans be like, I don't know. Maybe we got to trade him for Mason McTavish. Maybe we got to move on from him. Maybe we got to make a move. I'm not sure. Like, there's still some hesitancy around him compared to maybe how fans feel about some of the other players on the roster who they've seen develop, they've seen play well, and they feel a little bit more comfortable in what he's able to provide. Whereas a Dylan Cousins, he's still new. He still has the out of box like smell, like or like the new car smell. It's still hanging around Dylan Cousins. I think if he puts together a really solid year and everyone else around him in the lineup plays really well, like that goes a long way for this team's success and also the center depth. And I guess the last person who I think also has to be considered for this is Shane Pinto, because he's in a prove it year. And he's shown he can kill penalties. He's shown he could go up against the other team's best players. If he gets power play time this year and he makes the most of that, I mean, yeah, that could be a game changer for this team. So I just went all over the place. I mentioned like 4 or 5 different people. I probably didn't give a straightforward answer. That's okay.
I'll put you down for Dylan Cousins.
Final answer, Dylan Cousins, because I think I just have a little bit more confidence that all the other players around him are going to play well. But if he plays really well, I think the Ottawa Senators are looked at as a really good team in that division.
I like it. Yeah, Dylan Cousins is a good answer for sure. Well, Julian, thanks for giving us some time this morning. Always love having you on the show. Like I already mentioned, go check out all his work at The Athletic and enjoy Quebec City. In honor of Ross not being here, go get a croissant or 4 in his honor, because that Ross, famously, Quebec City is his favorite city in Canada. So go enjoy it.
I'm really sad I missed him by a week. It would have been really cool to reconnect with my good friend. You are also a good friend too, but I think the friendship is shared equally between you two. Yeah, man. But I'm gonna try to get my steps in after this.
Yes, good call. Good call. Stick taps to Julian McKenzie for joining me. Always great to have him on. And like I mentioned in the interview, if you guys aren't subscribed to The Athletic, get on that. It's worth the price of submission just to be able to follow along with Julian McKenzie alone, let alone all the other good stories. I mean, kind of a big story today. Kirill Kaprizov signing an 8-year, $17 million deal. AAV, that is. The total dollars is much more than 17 million, $136 million to stay with the Minnesota Wild. So if you want to catch up on that story, they're going to cover that. You can believe that for sure. And all Ottawa Senators stories. Julian McKenzie just wrote a great article on the Quebec City vibe. Dylan Cousins, as he mentions, is X Factor player. He wrote a good piece on that. So go support our guy, Julian, and get some good hockey knowledge at The Athletic. I want to thank you for tuning into today's episode, a solo Pillsy episode. So that's always fun for me to dust off my old hosting skills or lack thereof skills, try to continue to work on it. But I love doing this. So even if Ross isn't here, you better believe we're going to find a way to get you an episode of LOSP. So enjoy the game tonight, wherever you're watching. Go Sens, go. Today, it's been another episode of the Locked On Senators podcast, your team every day.